Hello and good evening. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Andrew Westoby and I'm delighted to welcome you to this Student to Stemette webinar, Social Media, Who to Follow. Student to Stemette is supported by Born to Be, the Deutsche Bank Youth Engagement Programme. We have 3 presenters ready to share their advice and guidance with you. You can follow along and join the Student to Stemette conversation by using the hashtag SDS14. Please type your questions for the presenters in the chat area on your screen. Our first presenter is Sue Beckingham. Sue is an educational developer at Sheffield Hallam University. She takes the faculty lead for technology enhanced learning at Sheffield Hallam. Sue's teaching portfolio is wide-ranging, including digital marketing, information design, and the use of social media in organizations. Sue is also a course designer and facilitator for the open online course, Bring Your Own Device for Learning. As a lifelong learner, Sue is currently taking a second master's degree in technology enhanced learning, innovation, and change. To get us started on this Student to Stemette webinar, Social Media Who to Follow, Sue Beckingham.
Good evening, everybody. It's an absolute pleasure to be here and talk about one of my favourite topics, and I'm going to do this by considering what I call the 5 C's of social media. So I'm going to start off by talking about connecting, communicating, and collaborating. So starting off thinking about how you could use social media to enhance your studies, the way that you can prepare for employment when you leave university. Being confident on social media is a really important aspect. So the first thing that you need to do is to start to connect with other people that you share interests with. So that will depend on you as an individual, what your particular specialist subject is that you're studying or that you plan to study if you go to university. And every social media tool, whether we think about looking at LinkedIn or Twitter, is in itself a search engine. So you can search to look for people, if you know people's names or companies, and start to look at who you might want to follow or like or connect with on LinkedIn. So once you start that process, and I think as you certainly get to university, you might want to consider having a LinkedIn profile, then you can start to communicate with people. What I would say to start with is important is that listening stage. Sometimes if people are new to using Twitter or new to using LinkedIn, then you can feel a little bit shy, you're not quite sure what to say. That's absolutely fine. And what I would advise is to listen to what the other people are doing. And by listen, I mean look at what they're actually typing. So if you're following people on Twitter or you're following hashtags, look at how people are communicating there, and then you can sort of emulate what they're doing. And certainly within LinkedIn, once you've started to connect with people, there's an opportunity then to ask those people questions. Within LinkedIn, there's an email service, so you can do it that way. But you can also join groups in LinkedIn. And again, the search engine within that is very sophisticated, so you can search for your particular areas of interest and see if there are any groups set up for that particular specialism, and go into that space where there will be discussions going on. The next thing that you might want to consider is how you could use social media to collaborate. Now, certainly in both school, college, as well as going on to university, there's lots of different opportunities to collaborate on group projects. And certainly from my perspective, I collaborate with my colleagues to write journal articles, book chapters, presentations even. And the social media tool that I would look at there is looking at Google. So Google Drive, within there, you can use Google Docs, Google Presentations, and together work on the same document that automatically saves either at the same time or at different times. So that's synchronously or asynchronously. You can leave each other comments if you're doing it at different times. And you can also use Google Hangouts. Google Hangouts, if you've not used that, is a little bit like Skype. So it gives you the opportunity to use your webcam and microphone and see each other, so you can have that conversation whilst simultaneously sharing the desktop that you've got open, your Google Drive. So you might be writing a Word document or the equivalent of a Word document, so you can talk about it as well as actually working on it. The next two C's are curate and create. Curation is a fairly recent thing that's gaining in popularity. You may have heard of Pinterest. Pinterest is a virtual pin board, if you like, where you can pin images to a board and give that particular board a name. And that can be really useful for lots of different things. You might decide to do that to curate the different books that you want to read. You may go to different websites and actually see information that's interesting. You can pin any image that's on that particular website. If you're a visual learner, it's quite a nice way to organise information. So that's one example. Another one is Scoop It, which is scoop.it. Again, you can take a URL, put it into your Scoop It page, which again, you give a name, you call it what you want to call it, and collect different articles, different web pages for a particular topic that you're interested in. The nice thing about that is that if people start to follow your Scoop It page, they can then share the articles or re-scoop them and put those articles onto their Scoop It page. So it's a nice way, as I say, of organising information in a slightly different way. And then finally, create. And I think this is something that can be quite broad, really, but one of the things you might want to consider to start with is to create your own blog. Now, you may at the beginning want to do that and do it privately, and that's absolutely fine, but you may get to a stage where actually you're creating blog posts with some really useful information that other people could enjoy reading. So creating a blog as a start, you might want to augment that and make that more visual by creating YouTube videos. So you might be describing a particular process and create a short video, or a screencast, which is a video of whatever's on your screen. And then you can embed that quite easily into your blog. You might decide that actually you just want to do an audio chat. So something like SoundCloud or Audioboo. You can record just the audio, and again, you can embed those into your blog. You may like to take photographs. That could be about your particular specialism. It may be in class, it may be about a project. So again, those images, those photographs or drawings can be embedded in your blog and make that more visual. And these are all things that you can share with other people. And the nice thing about blogs, both your own and looking at other people's blogs, is that you can engage in a conversation around that because you can leave comments. So people could leave comments and questions on your blog. If you visit other people's blogs, then you can ask them questions. And that's all part of this open learning process. So thinking about those 5 C's is a way for you to create your own personal learning network with lots of different people, not just within your own school, university, or even this country. It could be international and something that you start to develop conversations with people from all over the world. Thank you very much. We'll take questions at the end, I think.
Thank you very much, Sue. Thank you. And yes, we'll take questions at the end. So please post those in the chat area. Any questions there that you think our presenters should be answering for you, we'll get those when we've had all our presenters present. Thank you very much, Sue. Our second presenter is Mary Carty. Mary is an entrepreneur, CEO of Spoilt Child, and co-founder of Toddle.com. She's an experienced mentor and advisor working across games, film, and technology. Mary's interested in building sustainable business and finance models for creative practitioners and companies. Currently, Mary sits on the board of the Irish Internet Association and helps Stemettes promote STEM careers to young girls and women. Our second presenter on this Student to Stemette webinar, Social Media, Who to Follow, is Mary Carty.
Hi everyone, really nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me. There's a couple of things I want to talk you through tonight, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your reactions as well and what you think. Right now, we are all influencers. We influence people around us, and people around us influence us. It's really important. And I like to think of it like a huge big archery wheel. Every wheel connects with the next one. So the people that you meet in school, the people you meet at work, the people you meet around you, your friends and your family, they influence you, and you also influence them. So you need to think about the people who are leaders in their field, who are really smart at what they do. And if you are interested in them, absolutely make sure you follow those. So be it on Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook, it's a really good strategy. The thing is, those really smart people are influenced by other really smart people. So maybe you should think about following them too. So you have to realize that your sphere of influence is actually really big. And as you move on in your career, that sphere of influence is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So I guess it's about, and it's definitely about being helpful and being useful, and to share your expertise and your knowledge with other people, because the things that you know really, really well will help other people, because maybe you're going to save them time, or you're going to teach them something they don't know very well. And if you're helpful and useful, that's really brilliant, because it saves me time. And if you save me time and you teach me something, then I'm definitely going to follow you even more, and I'm going to share the things that you helped me with other people. And that's a really smart strategy. It's about being helpful and useful. It's about building your network, building your profile, and also in the same way, it's about other people trusting you and you and your help to share with other people. So I think when you think about social media, I think it's really important to think about trust, to think about building long-term relationships, and to think about all those different spheres of influence that you live in the world, and connect them all together. That's a really simple way of thinking about it. I follow a lot of people, and these days we all seem to follow a million people. And when you follow a lot of people, you can get confused or maybe forget to follow somebody in particular. So it's really important to put people in a list. And on Twitter, you can do that pretty easily. So when you click on follow somebody, a list pops up, and you can add them to a list. And you can decide whatever you want to call that list. Maybe it is social media gurus, or maybe it's STEM professionals, or maybe it's something to do with your class or whatever else. So make sure you add people to lists, and that way then you can continue to follow these people. On Twitter, that list is really important, because it means that you will listen in to things that are important. So you're not constantly going through your feed every day, but you can follow specific people in a specific list, and that will save you a heck of a lot of time. And I've learned the hard way. Okay, the other thing I find really useful is following events, particularly on Twitter. So I would love to be in 10 places at the time, even more every day, but it's not possible. I love to follow events on Twitter, so look for different conferences or meetings, whatever else. Most of them have hashtags now, which is great. And then follow those people, those events. And the lovely and wonderful thing about it is, ask people to introduce you to other really cool people, and they will. And if you follow people at the event, then who knows, maybe next year you might get asked to be speaking at the event. You never know. And you can also end up meeting really amazing people, like these wonderful folks that I know in Stemettes. And none of this would have happened without Twitter. So ask for referrals. Ask people to connect you together and say, hey, this is my friend Andrew. Andrew, you really need to have a chat with Anne-Marie, or you really need to have a chat with Tequila, and really nicely, people will help. And it will be a really good strategy to grow your profile. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mary. Please stay on the line. We had a little bit of experience, a little bit of issue there with hearing everything that you were saying, but it was an intermittent problem, so I think we'll be able to come back to you later and have you answer some questions. So please do stay on the line. If you have a question for the presenters and you're thinking about that now, please post that in the chat area. So that's at the bottom left-hand corner. Long or short questions, they're all good. All questions are good. Please post those down there and we'll get your answers when we've heard from all our presenters. Our third presenter is Faye Presley. Faye Presley leads a team of expert technology recruitment consultants for Mortimer Spinks and has a hands-on role as a divisional manager. Faye is Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development qualified with a Master's in Human Resources Management. Her expertise is in evolving and emerging technologies, including cloud computing and virtualization. Faye works closely alongside some of the UK's leading brands to source top technology talent. Our third and final presenter on this Student to Stemette webinar, Social Media Who to Follow, is Faye Presley.
Hello everyone. Thank you also very much for having me on here tonight. Very excited. Just really quickly, I suppose most of what I'm going to say has kind of already been covered by Mary and Sue, so it's really just sort of reiterating that. But I suppose a quick introduction on, I suppose, my experiences in social media. I came out of university and I definitely had Facebook, but I didn't have Twitter and I didn't have LinkedIn, and I didn't necessarily know sort of the benefits and potential of those sort of sites and tools from both a personal and professional point of view. So I suppose one of the things that I want to cover to begin with is sort of the what, the who's, the where's and the why's of why to follow really great people within sort of social media. So starting at the very beginning, it's really important that you guys really work out and drill down as to what you want to get from making an effort, building these connections, building these relationships with people. It could be the fact that you just want to learn really great information from leaders in your industry, and both professional and personal, hopefully in technology. Whether that's you want to grow your own personal or professional network, discovering just interesting shareable content, silly little things or games or really valuable sort of technical information that you can use. It might be, I think Mary said it at the beginning, you're looking to go into the professional industry and get a new job or find a new employer. And sometimes it's even just making friends. But it's really important that you understand what you want to gain from it, so you can then really target and hone in on who it is that you're going to follow and sort of where to find those people, because they're dotted around. So that's really important. Also, it is time consuming, and Sue mentioned it's about long-term relationships, so it's not going to happen overnight. You don't want to waste sort of loads of time. So make sure you know who it is that you want to target. In terms of sort of the who's for me, I mean, it started off with sort of just really great brands that I liked shopping for, or I liked buying from, and Starbucks was a great one. Sort of tweet your coffee and get free coffees. But then moving into the professional industry, a really great one for those of you that are on Twitter, at TED Talks. If anyone wants me to follow up with information, by the way, just post your questions on there. But at TED Talks, especially within the tech industry, if there's anything that you want to know, they're a really, really great sort of brand to follow on Twitter. I think they've got 2 million followers as well, so a real influencer, which Sue was kind of highlighting. But your friends will be on these social media websites, your colleagues, sort of key influencers in terms of individual people as well. You need to kind of go all out and sort of target, I suppose, the whole lot within that specific industry, depending on what it is that you want it for. Now, in terms of where these influencers are, Mary said some really, really, a scoop, I think it was, which I've not heard of before, so that was a really good one. For me, within the recruitment and the technology industry, GitHub is a great example. It's the largest code host, I think, on the planet. basically a social networking site for programmers. WordPress is another really good one. Tumblr. Tumblr is a social media site where you can follow people's blogs. And I'm going to go on in a little bit as to why it's important to sort of gain valuable content. But if there's a really great blog on Tumblr that you've read and that you've seen and you think, oh wow, really learned a lot from that, you can share that content on your social media channels, which in turn sort of creates, I suppose, a bit of an influence for your followers and your connections. So it's about sharing information and sharing content. LinkedIn groups, absolutely. If you're not on LinkedIn already, I highly suggest it. I use it every single day, professionally and personally. There are hundreds and thousands of groups on there, and I think LinkedIn is becoming the fastest social media site for graduates across the world. So it's not just for, senior professionals or anything like that. It is for graduates as well, and there's a really, really great community on there. Finally, alltop.com, which is fairly new to me, is a really, really great website where you can specifically target sort of key influencers. So as Andrew said, I work a lot in sort of the cloud industry. If you go to alltop.com and type in cloud computing, it comes up with a list of influential people within that industry and what social media sites that they're on. So really, really useful. And finally, Twitter, obviously. I'm sure most of you are already on Twitter anyway, but there are so many cool things that you can do with Twitter. And if you're really interested in sort of finding influencers and following influencers, if you go to twitter.com/search-advanced, which I'll type on there in 2 seconds, can't do it both at the same time, you can actually specifically target on words or places or people or even dates of sort of employment and education, specific people that you would be interested in connecting with. So along with the hashtag search, you go to search advanced and it can bring up sort of a whole new list. In terms of, I suppose, where to start, I suppose a bit of advice, because I started from the absolute bottom. I suggest you start with creating a list of sort of 10 to 20 influencers. Keep them on a doc. Sue, absolutely right. Create a list. Otherwise, you end up filtering through hundreds and hundreds of people that aren't necessarily going to be relevant to your specific network. So, create a doc for your friends, for potential employers, for people, that are going to sort of, I suppose, work on the same course as you or anything like that. A tool which, again, I'll post on here later on, is a tool called Hootsuite, which simplifies your Twitter and LinkedIn connections into those different groups. So organizations of your list is definitely useful, definitely saves you a lot of time. I suppose my other advice is don't panic too much about who is on the list. Again, quoting Sue, everyone is an influencer. You're an influencer. Your influencers have influencers. So you might not necessarily see the benefits of it sort of overnight, but if you connect with that one person, they, may retweet one of your tweets, which their connection sees, who then in turn connects with you. So it kind of all does come back around. But in order for that to happen really effectively, it's absolutely about building relationships. And trust came up quite a few times as well. In order to build relationships, you've kind of really got to give something back. It's not just about sort of take, which leads me on to my next slide, actually. So I click on there. It is a two-way street. So yes, connect with people, yes, read their content, and 100% listen first, especially if you're new to any of these sites. You don't have to just jump straight in, just watch and sort of witness everything, see what people are speaking about, read your blogs, read some great articles. And then when you do get a little bit more confident, it's about sharing other people's content and, sharing other people's blogs, writing your own blogs, retweeting sort of interesting posts that your connections have posted, attending your connections, events, joining their groups. Anything you can do to help them grow their network will ultimately come back to you. And you're probably thinking, well, where am I going to find, this really great content? There are so many places. Tumblr, like I mentioned earlier, is one of them. You can set up Google alerts for companies and brands that you have a real interest in, and it will pop up in your email. Anything that sort of interesting happens with those companies, it comes straight into your email and you can post about it straight away. That's a really, really simple one. Blogs, contributing to other people's groups. It's about giving back as well as taking. If you don't build those relationships and engage and provide content, you'll struggle to get the connections back and get the influence back. So it's definitely 100% a two-way street. Finally, just I suppose, piece of advice. Selling, I probably don't need to go too much into, but one thing I've learned the hard way is no matter how, insightful or witty your posts are, you won't be taken seriously with typos. So even though the web is more relaxed, I suppose in terms of a medium, mistakes are magnified, especially as you do only have a short space to write statuses or tweets or anything like that. So that's number one, quite a simple one. And finally, be really careful sort of what you're posting about your personal life and how personal you do make it. It's vital you have a personality, on social media, and you are you and you stand out as a unique individual with expertise or knowledge in a certain area. But moving or sort of making that transition from education to professional life, or if you're looking to set up your own business, and the last thing sort of clients or consumers or businesses want to see sort of when they go on is any sort of conflicting personal life going on. So it's just about getting that balance right. If anyone wants more detail on any of the sites that I've mentioned, post questions on there or tweet me, and I will do my best to answer. But to summarize, build relationships, share great content, and there's some really good tools for specifically finding really good influencers. So thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you very much, Faye. Thank you for your information there. And thank you for reaching out at the end there and saying that the different things that you can do. We've now heard from our presenters, and I'm going to bring those presenters back online in a minute to answer your questions. So please post your questions in the chat box there, anything that you'd like to ask about social media and who to follow. But before we do that, I'm going to move to a poll. I'm just going to grab that and put that up here. So on the screen now, you should be able to see that there is a poll. We've heard about some suggestions of what you could do next. What will you choose to do next? You may not have heard everything. I know we've had a few people that have joined a little bit later. Put a vote in there. You just need to vote for one. We heard from Sue talking about connecting, communicating and collaborating. And she also went on to talk about curating and creating. Would you choose one of those? So put a vote, get some votes going in. That's great. So we can see that moving. I always like the way that it moves up and down when people see what they voted for, because you can change. Following people. I like the idea that you can your influencers have influencers as well, which is always great. So it looks like everybody's voted there. Let's have a look. Oh, it looks like that reset itself. Go for it again. Pop those votes in again, and then we'll see before it. Not quite sure what happened there. Or following events at the bottom, we had looking for the hashtag, which is on there as well. So from what we can see here, got curating and creating. And I know that Pinterest, we've had some Pinterest boards shared there in the chat area. Looks like we're going to be creating some new and information to add on and connecting with some people as well. So that's great. Thank you very much for sharing that. Okay, so I'm going to ask the presenters now to come back on screen so we can answer your questions. Please post your questions in the chat section, in the chat box there. That would be great. Thank you. And we've had an email question in from Justina. So if I can ask each of our presenters to give me a response on this, or to give Justina a response on this. Justina says, I'm aware as a technologist I'm missing out from not using social media professionally. So she's perhaps one of those individuals that haven't quite got around to doing this yet. Concept interests me, yet not for personal use. What 5 steps could I take to utilize social media? So there's a bit of a sort of a 5-step chart there. Also for the younger generation, how could they use social media to stand out and get noticed? So we've had some responses to that already. I was wondering, Sue, if you could think about, is there a 5-step plan, do you think, Sue, for taking on the mantle of social media, perhaps with Twitter?
I think if I was starting off, I think Twitter's quite hard to go into. If you've never used it before, you can certainly go in and listen, but it does take a while for Twitter to be meaningful. It's only as good as the people that you follow. So that process of building your connections is going to take time. So that and listening to how people are using it is one aspect. What I think might also be useful is considering a LinkedIn profile, because straight away, as you start to connect with people that initially you might know, so people you work with or study with, but you can start to look at who they're connected with and maybe start to increase the pool of people that you're going to start, I guess, having conversations with. And you can do that in a variety of different ways. You can do it, as I mentioned earlier, by emailing them. But what's really interesting is to engage in the group. So joining the group, and whether you're interested in computing, physics, chemistry, any aspect of science or anything to do with STEM, just picking out a few out of STEM because it's so varied, there's so many things. There will be a group that you could join, and once you're in there, you can start to listen to conversations, ask questions, and that then leads on to other opportunities, because people might be talking about events, promoting events that are going on. So you could then attend something like that and then have the opportunity to talk to that person face to face. So that stepped approach means that you can start it online, but then you can meet face to face. And then when you return to the online, it makes it so much easier having those conversations, because obviously you've met. If you don't meet them, then again, that's okay, because you can still have those conversations.
That's great. Thank you, Sue.
Five steps, but that would be where I would start.
Mary, what do you think you could add to that? Thinking about LinkedIn, is LinkedIn something that you use?
Yeah, LinkedIn is massively effective, and the thing is, when you post something on LinkedIn, it lives longer on LinkedIn than it would on Facebook. And not too many people know that. Can you hear me okay?
You're chopping up a little bit, but if you're coming through loud and clear, just a little slower maybe in talking.
Okay, sorry about that. Yes, LinkedIn is really effective. I think that if you find the right group, and you have really good material to share, then that group of like-minded people, to find out where are the people you want to, where do they hang out online, and go there. Spend time there, because it's the most effective way. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time, and it's almost like a scattergun approach. Try and go to the places where those people you want to talk to hang out most, and have conversations with them there. And that's much more effective.
Well, that's a good point. Thank you for that, Mary. Faye, what do you think from a sort of recruiter's point of view? How is LinkedIn playing out now? What does that mean for people with their online CVs? Is that an important thing to have? Even if you're a student, is that an important thing to have?
Yeah, I think sort of a couple of years ago, it sort of wasn't as popular, and I think LinkedIn was being used as a definite sort of networking tool. But now it's socially acceptable. That is where your profile is. So if you're a student and you're not quite ready to look for a job yet, start building your profile now. Start adding bits to it. Start adding projects that you're working on. Start joining groups. You don't necessarily have to post content straight away, but if you can, brilliant. But like I said, that it's fast becoming one of the largest sort of networking sites for graduates and students across the world. So it isn't just senior professionals on there now. There's everyone. It doesn't look as cool as Facebook, but the younger generation is definitely on there. So there is a community you can connect with. I think, as Mary said, and Sue, you don't want to kind of go out scattergun approach or start off and sort of sink straight away. So start off small, take baby steps, build your profile sort of week by week, month by month, and then when you are ready, you'll look back and all of a sudden you'll have loads of information on there which you can just continue to evolve and build on. As a recruiter, LinkedIn profiles are really, really important.
And I think what I'm hearing from what you're saying is that it's a step, and from what Sue said as well, it's definitely a step that you can do step by step. You don't have to do everything at once. You don't have to populate a whole profile. Is that right?
It's absolutely right. And LinkedIn actually, it measures your steps. So LinkedIn's a really good one to start, because it will start off saying, just put in your education, step 2, right, where are you from? So it's not a case of, wow, I've got this whole lot to fill in straight away. It will take you through the process really gradually. And then all of a sudden it will just become sort of part of your day-to-day sort of routine of when you update things and statuses you like and statuses you want to share. So it definitely guides you through, which is good.
That's good. That's good. We've had a question here about blogs and setting up blogs, and we touched on that a little bit about setting up a blog. And I suppose another sort of idea of if you haven't used any blogs before, what sites would you recommend, Sue? What do you think? Where would be a good place to start?
Two of my favourites, and I use both actually, one is blogger.com, and the other is wordpress.com. Both are pretty straightforward. I would say that Blogger might be the easier one. There's less choice of templates. I think if you use WordPress, you can procrastinate for quite a while, because for the free version, I think you've got over 100 different templates that you could choose from, and you can spend quite a lot of time. But actually, that's really nice, good fun, and if you're creative, you can add images to create a banner for the top of your blog, and they've got really good how-to guides within there, as well as a forum. So if you get stuck on anything, then there's always somebody to ask or something to read that can help you through that. And they also have YouTube videos to take you through it as well. So you can't go too far wrong, really. And it's free. And the other thing to remember is that you've got the private, or you can people that you invite
between maybe professional and private, and thinking about what the tone might be. And she's talking about the different things that she's posting online. How important is this sort of making the difference there between what you might have in your private life or within your non-working life, and the distinction there? How important is that, do you think? Start with you, Faye.
Back on now. I personally think it's really, really important, and I think it's an art form to definitely get the balance right. Again, you've got to think about who is it that you want to connect with and influence and I suppose share your content with. You really got to think about your sort of target audience. Is it just friends that you want to share, great pictures of your holiday with, or is it people within sort of a professional sense and professional industry? You've got to work that out before I suppose you can answer whether it should be personal or professional. For me personally, and everyone at Mortimer Spinks, the blogs that we do, the more kind of, I suppose, informal and down to earth, the better. So we are marketing a professional audience, but we feel that, as humans, we can relate better if it's a bit more of a conversational, sort of short, sweet, to the point, bit of personality in there as well, and not going too far, sort of over the line, but informative. So if you're informal, you're personal, but at the same time you're providing valuable information and content that people can use, that for me is the perfect balance. But again, it completely depends on sort of who your audience is and what it is that you're trying to achieve.
I suppose sort of testing it out, maybe if people this evening have heard about some new tools, it's sort of looking at some of those new things that perhaps they haven't heard of before, and maybe giving them a go. So, Sue, you were talking about was it Audio Boo that you mentioned? Is that and sound and audio recording?
Yeah, two of the audio ones. If you think about YouTube for video, so there's YouTube and there's also Vimeo, so you can create your own videos and upload those. The equivalent for audio is Audio Boo or SoundCloud. And what people use that for is, well, a variety of different things. Some people use it for music and they upload their music and they get feedback and comments on it. But people also do short lectures, short stories, certainly in journalism, news stories by audio, so they've done an interview. So it could be an interview about your project, people that are involved in your project. So rather than having to think about the background and the video and all the things, you know, related to having the visual as well as a sound, that's quite a nice way to do it. And you can also download those apps on your smartphone or tablet and record it straight from the device. And it's really quick and easy. It literally is a green to go, red to stop, and then you can upload that and put that onto your blogs. Or you can tweet it, you know, wherever you want it to go, really.
It's really, as we've been talking about, the difference between sort of creating other people's content and creating your own content, and then just having, you are really, I mean, I suppose that's what we're talking about when we're talking about joining the conversation. You're actually sharing something then, aren't you, with people, and then growing your influence. So, and these things don't have to be, you know, huge undertakings, do they? They can be quite small. We talked about the sort of step approach of getting onto LinkedIn. They can be quite manageable.
And just looking at the comments, the Quirky Ramblings, Mary's posted in there. She's got a blog about her travels. What a fantastic idea that is. You know, you could take short videos, you could take audios. I mean, just the audio of the seaside and sounds and birds and animals, you know, if that was of interest to you, it just adds a little bit more dimension. And doing that as a project, okay, it might not necessarily be related to studies, it might be. But doing this, you know, sort of for recreation, if you like, is actually a nice way to practice the craft of writing within a blog, creating, you know, short, succinct paragraphs. You know, you're not writing an essay when you're writing a blog post, much shorter. And it can be really interesting, and it's a nice way as you know, to make connections with other people that are going to share those interests, which then lead into other conversations, and you find out actually you've got other things in common, and so it goes on.
One thing that I wanted to ask about was to find out a little bit more about Google Drive and presentations. It's something I've not come across very much. And when we think about creating something ourselves and then saying, well, we want other people to create with us, did I hear you right when you said you can use Google Drive to collaborate with other people as well?
Absolutely, yeah. Within Google Drive, you've got the equivalent of PowerPoint presentation, Word documents, Excel, and you can open that up and at the same time work on the same document. If there's two of you or three of you, what you'll find is as you're typing, you've got a different coloured pen nib, or your cursor looks a different colour, so you can see that, you know, there's different people in there. And also you will see that icon at the top of the screen, so it shows who's actually online. Yes. There's also comment boxes that you can leave comments if you come in later and you want to contribute to it, or you've got a question about what somebody's written on the PowerPoint presentation equivalent that you're doing in there. You can leave that question for your peers and colleagues that you're actually doing that collaborative work. And it auto saves, and it's great. You can just share that link. You can keep that private. You can do that just within the small group, or you can share it openly. So again, there's lots of different settings to meet the needs of the situation at hand.
That's excellent. Thank you for expanding on that, Sue. I think, Faye, when you were talking about minding your two P's and the proofreading, from a sort of a recruitment point of view, the spelling is important, isn't it? It's important. You said, you know, whatever you're putting up, it's one of those things. Does that feature just as much as perhaps other sort of faux pas on social media that people might put up? Sort of, if you're trying to connect and link with people, that's important, is it?
Yeah, and I think it's really easy, especially when using, I suppose, slightly more relaxed social media sites like sort of Twitter, for example. You can kind of get into the slang, and there's lots of hashtags and sort of ways you can abbreviate words. Again, I'll bring it back to, you know, it depends on who it is that you sort of want to connect with and follow back. For me, I always think spelling is important. I think it's a bit of a bigger deal on like the likes of LinkedIn, which is more of a professional networking site. But yeah, as a recruiter, it's definitely popped up without a doubt. It's not the end of the world, but it definitely popped up.
And someone mentioned about Scoop It, and there was a link that was put earlier on, and I think Faye, you said you hadn't heard of Scoop It. Mary, have you heard of Scoop It before?
Yeah, it's really good. There's a lot of other services like it. It's almost like curating your own little newspaper or your own little article bank, and that's really nice. There's quite a few people use them on Twitter, so they have a daily one, and basically you set it up by deciding on what particular, I don't know, topics or whatever else you're interested in, and basically this Scoop It or other services like it pull those topics and populate it into almost a little paper. And then you have a daily newspaper, if you like, and it gets issued on Twitter. So your daily newspaper on marketing or whatever else gets published and people share it because it's really interesting. And the nice thing about it is the people who have contributed to it, on Twitter it lists their names as well. And that's really lovely. It's a really, really nice thing. And any time that my work or something I tweeted gets featured in one of these daily papers, I get really excited. It's really nice.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Thank you for talking about that, because there's lots of different tools that have been talked about this evening, and it's that connection, isn't it, between curating something that then you can share with those influencers that you haven't yet met. Are there any more questions that our attendees would like to ask in the chat there? I suppose it's useful to mention just about just our general sort of being responsible on the internet, as we're talking about people who are sort of starting out, and about thinking about, there's different, good to check your privacy settings ever so once in a while, and just to check there to make sure that they're setting, as you start to expand on the tools that you're using, it's always a good thing to do, I think. Yes, thank you, Mary, for talking about Paperly there. That's another Scoop It, which is good. Jasmine's asked a question here. We're talking about blogs, and we're talking about the different things that we're adding to and we're creating. How often should we be updating? I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? We've all got busy lives, and we're creating another sort of persona for ourselves online. How frequently we should be updating those different things that we're doing? Mary, what do you think about that?
That's a difficult one. I think you need to think about the platform. Posts on Facebook now last only minutes, depending on how many people you follow. Posts on Pinterest, funny enough, last longer, because if you put something up on Pinterest and I repin it, somebody else will pin it again. So it's almost like that piece of content shows up over and over and over again. I definitely think that if you have a blog or a website, you should definitely be updating it, certainly weekly. Twitter and that is more immediate. I think people can update that maybe a couple of times a day. It comes back to your goals, I suppose. What do you want to achieve, and what conversations do you want to have with the people you are connecting to? So in a business case, if I'm working for a business, then obviously my Twitter updates and Facebook updates are going to be definitely more often, and I can automate them to some degree, which is lovely. If it's your personal work and you're trying to build a personal brand, then you need to think about maybe when is the best time to contact people, because maybe the people you want to talk to work office hours. So maybe you should try and put up a few tweets around office hours so you catch the eye of the recruiter who works in Facebook or Google or wherever it is you want to go to maybe after you graduate. So think about who you want to talk to and when is the best time to grab their attention, and then work around that, I think.
That's great. Thank you, Mary. Is there anything that you could add to that, Sue? Just thinking about the question there that Mary's asked. Is there anything there, Sue? Do you think you could add to it?
I think in terms of how frequent, it depends, as we've just said, what medium that we're actually using, and I think there's certainly the opportunity to use Twitter frequently, and that's something I do daily. In fact, it's a bit of a routine as I travel, because I get access to Twitter on the bus. I can get Wi-Fi access. I will check through my different lists. So I organise the people that I follow into different lists. I might be following hashtags, so I'll dip into those. And it's a bit like reading a newspaper. You check what the latest news is. So I would then share information out, whether that's my tweets, retweeting, etc., or just commenting on something that has been tweeted. In terms of my blog, I don't tend to necessarily do that every week. I think if you're doing it as a business, then you might want to do it more frequently. But because I blog about social media for learning, it's when something interesting comes up, or if somebody asks me a question, I'll blog a post out. LinkedIn, again, if there's something interesting to share, certainly not daily, weekly. It depends. If there's something interesting to share, then I'll update it.
So we've heard, thank you for that. We've heard a lot about the different ways that we might be using online, and Jasmine's just gone on to say about that she's actually, she's using Blogger. She's got a blog on Blogger, and she's using Twitter, but she's rarely using Facebook now. And is there a change there to make?
One of the questions you need to consider is that shift between social and professional. And one of the things I think is really important to mention at this stage is to Google yourself and see what other people see, because it's very important to check that your security settings are quite tight for the likes of Facebook, because you may be sharing things that you don't necessarily want prospective employers or even colleagues that if you've got a part-time job to see. That on Facebook to me is your social space where you're sharing information with your friends and your family. So
yes,
you need to think about what persona do you want to portray, and as you start to think about having a professional online presence, then your digital footprint, the footprints that you leave every time you go on social media, stay there. People read them. They might not read them today. They might read them in a few days' time. People can pick up on these things, and certainly if they Google you, they can see it. So you need to start thinking then carefully about the information that you share and make sure that is going to be of value and show you in a good light.
Excellent. Yes. And I think it's about making those goals as well, isn't it? And about refining your goals as you go, so they don't have to necessarily stay stuck. When we talked about building the lists this evening, it's okay to make a list of people, gather in and get people in your Twitter feed. But then if those people don't give you the things that you want, then you can start a new list or refine that list as you go. So, and in the same way, making sure those goals are fit your needs are important.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
We're coming, and Jasmine said thank you for that. So that's great. We're coming to the end of the session now. Thank you very much. I know Faye's had to leave us, but thank you very much to everyone that's attended, and a big thank you to our presenters. Our next steps, we'd like very much for you to fill in our feedback for the session, and also to join I'll put that link there in the side there in the chat. And also, we'd like very much for you to join our next webinar, which is on the 10th of December. But a big thank you to our three presenters. Thank you, Sue. Thank you very much, Mary. And thank you, Faye, for joining us today. It's been great to have you on the line and talk to you all. And thank you very much to our attendees. So goodbye, and until next time, take care. Bye-bye.